Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, Tomcat Stitchery. I'm Whitney and today I have a little bit different video for you. So today I'm sharing some of my recently knitted projects and also wanted to share some plans for knitting projects going forward. I mean, if you are here for the sewing videos, that's not going to change. I'm not going to turn into a knitting channel by any means. I am definitely not as proficient a knitter as I am, a seamstress, and my knitting is just so much slower. So this will probably be one of those things that maybe you see a knitting video, you know, see a Gidget, a couple of times a year, you know, maybe 3 times a year, once a quarter, maybe. So 4 times maybe tops, if that. I don't knit nearly as much in the summer months as the weather gets cooler or warmer. So anyway, but I did want to show you, I have 3 things to show you that I have somewhat recently finished. I think one sweater I finished before Halloween, and then, is that right? Maybe the beginning of October I finished that one. And then the second one I actually knit up pretty quick, except for that last sleeve kind of hung on there a little bit. No, the first one I finished, because I remember we were trying to get it finished before Labor Day. So yeah, the first sweater I'm going to show you, it was like, I finished knitting it around the beginning of September. The second one I finished knitting, well, I just got finished putting the buttons on, so I just finished knitting it. And then the third thing I knit over the weekend because it's just a hat and knit up pretty quickly. And then I want to show you, yeah, some plans. And I've got 4 things that I'm gonna, be doing going forward. So let's get started. Okay, so I'm gonna show you what I made first, and we'll go in order of completion, and then I'll put twirls of me actually wearing the garments, and then we will talk about the yarn and all that kind of stuff that I've used as well, if you're interested. So if you are a knitter and you're interested in where I got the yarn, most of the yarn, with the exception of the gifted yarn, came from my local yarn shop, but it's all yarn that you can buy, you know, pretty regularly around everywhere. And then I have one sweater I'm working on that's actually Knit Picks, which is an online knitting store, yarn store. It's not just knitting, crochet, all that kind of stuff. Yarn arts store. All right, so let's delve in. Okay. So the first thing that I knitted, and again, this is, you've seen, I've worn this on the channel actually a little bit, but this is my soundtrack sweater by Olive Knits, and this was actually a knit along that she did over the summer. Actually, I think it started at 4th of July weekend. I didn't start it then. So this took me from like that 4th of July weekend until Labor Day weekend, I guess, to knit up, which was pretty fast for me. I'm not, someone had mentioned, because I did a hat in a day the other, this last weekend, that I'm a fast knitter. And I guess when I'm actually sitting down and doing it, I'm fast-ish. I'm just not, it's not something that I sit down and do a ton. Like, I have to be in the right frame of mind. I think I've mentioned on here before, actually, I can get hyper-focused. Are you coming back up here? She just can't decide what she wants to do. There we go. I can get hyper-focused on things, and I had mentioned at one point, I'm like the opposite of having ADD, attention and deficit disorder, because I get hyper-focused, and someone actually responded that that's actually a sign of ADD, is being able to get hyper-focused on things, which I was like, oh, well maybe... maybe this explains my entire life. So I can very easily get sucked into things and like to the detriment of like not being able to do anything else. And sometimes that happens with knitting. But other times, you know, like I won't pick up my knitting for, you know, a long time. And I have one project that's sitting here that has been on my needles for well over about a year probably. So, you know, like I'm just not as quick to get through my knitting projects as I am my sewing projects, obviously. I mean, knitting is obviously a slower craft. But anyway, this is my soundtrack sweater. I will put a picture of me wearing it. I made it fairly close fitting. I did shorten the sleeves. I did not knit the sleeves as long. And she offers in the pattern itself, she talks about if you want to make it long, mid-length, or even a cropped version. And I made mine the mid-length version. So I think I knit down like 15 inches from my underarm seam, which is just right about where I want it to hit. I want it to be somewhat shorter where I can kind of like tuck it a little bit. I used wool from Patagonia. It is a organic merino wool. It's a little scratchy. Like I wouldn't want to wear this like right up against my skin. I think I would always wear something underneath this. Oh, I think I'd always wear something underneath this. And the colors I used are cinnamon for this kind of burnt orange color. And I think the purple, I've lost my tag for my purple. But when I look on the website for this wool, and again, I'll link everything, my wool that I used, the yarn I used and everything. I think it's like, Lobelia or something like that. It starts with an L. I'm pretty sure that's what the purple is, but obviously this was my first color work. I'd never done color work before. And so this is the first time I've done it, and I think this is a pretty easy one to do with the color work, but I just love how it turned out. Obviously it was knit from the top down. Not obviously, it was knit from the top down. You know, it's got a yoke, obviously, and then you go back and pick up stitches for, you know, you leave stitches, live stitches on yarn, and then go back and pick those up to do the sleeves. And it's got the beautiful rib knit at the bottom. I just really love this one. I just think it turned out like really well. I love the way that it fits. Probably my favorite sweater that I've made to date. You know, my skills are improving. The more, as with any craft, the more you do, the better you get, the more you learn about like different yarns. You know, I knit that alpaca bamboo yarn last year, I guess, and loved the sweater, loved the pattern, but it grew like crazy because, and I should have known this, but with the bamboo, that's very heavy. It's like a rayon. It is, it's got weight to it, and so it's gonna weigh things down. And the alpaca was lovely too, but the alpaca, I think, is known for growing a little bit as well when it gets blocked. So I just don't wear that sweater as much because it became very oversized, which is fine. Like, that's a fine look, and it definitely will get worn, but it gets worn a little differently than I had originally anticipated. So yeah, I'm still learning about yarns and how they behave, and figuring out my own knitting, because yeah, I'm definitely not as proficient in knitting as I am in my sewing. So that was sweater number 1. Then I cast on after that, and I did that with my friend Jenny. You guys know my friend Jenny, my thrifting friend Jenny. We both did that. Actually, I'm gonna pop a picture. We thought it was hilarious that we made the same sweater, and so we did funny senior pictures, and so I'm gonna pop a picture. I'm gonna pop a picture of us posing in our sweaters. We were trying to do like goofy senior picture poses, because yeah, we think we're funny. Anyway, that is both of us in our sweaters, and we were both that was her first sweater that she had ever knit. Anyway, so we had a really fun time doing that together and buying the yarn together, and yeah, that's something we also enjoy on top of thrifting. So then the next thing I made is my cardigan that you guys have been seeing. Let me button it real quick so that you can kind of get a better look here. So this pattern is Lily Kate English, and this was the first pattern I had ever knit from her, and this is the Be Thankful Cardigan. And I used this gorgeous gifted yarn from Kris. So Kris sent me this yarn back in the spring. I believe she had been won it in a contest, and it was a Shibui, I don't know if I'm saying that right, Shibui Knits yarn. It's gorgeous. It's an alpaca merino blend, but they no longer make it. So this is an out of date, or not out of date, out of print, out of a retired substrate, I guess, from them. But Kris had won it. I think that was the story. But when she was looking at it, realized that no one in her family or close friends wore brown, and it is like my perfect brown. And so she sent me the whole, it was 9 full skeins and then a couple of balls, and I was able to knit this entire cardigan, and then I have just a little bit left over. Anyway, I knit, again, it's the alpaca merino blend. It is gorgeous. It's a very thick yarn, so this is a very heavy cardigan, which when it blocked made it just a little bit longer, but I think putting the buttons on it, it kind of cinches it back up at the waist, so now it's just kind of oversized, which is exactly what I wanted. That's what I loved about the sweater pattern, and I love this exaggerated balloon sleeve on here. The sleeves took me forever to do, not because they took forever to do, I just kept putting it down and then not picking it up. I know that that's a thing, second sleeve syndrome, which is the same thing with socks, like second sock syndrome, like you're just over it. And I'll talk about it in a minute, but I'm knitting a pair of mittens right now, and I'm really nervous that I'm gonna get second mitten syndrome as well. It's a real thing, I get it. But yes, it took me forever. The first sleeve got knit up in no time, and then the second one, it took forever. So this one gets picked up, you pick up stitches and then knit your sleeve, but it has a very exaggerated decreases here to give it kind of that balloon sleeve. And then the beautiful ribbing on the end. This one blocked really nicely. I just really like how this one ended up, and it's exactly how I wanted. And I went with the gold dome buttons. You guys helped me pick that. Those metal buttons, they are pretty light, and this is a very heavy sweater, so I felt pretty good about using the lighter buttons, and I sewed them on using the yarn. So I sewed those on, and they're a shank button, which helps. I didn't, you know, I could use kind of the thicker eyed needle in order to use the yarn. And after, you know, I had sent out a call on how to attach buttons. I think if this were lighter weight yarn, it would have made sense to put the grosgrain ribbon on the back to stabilize the buttons. But because it is such a heavy yarn, I decided not to do that. And because my buttons are nice and light, and I think it's gonna work just fine. So yeah, I love this. So thank you, Kris, so much. You're right, it is one of my colors, 100%. I love this because it is a brown, but it definitely has like yellow undertones, like ochre undertones. It's like my perfect, it's one of my colors. I love it. And it's a weird color, you know, like it's not one you see very often. Anyway, this one's gonna be worn a ton over things, especially as the weather, you know, it's snowing today as I'm filming this. So as the weather starts to get colder, that's gonna get pulled out a lot. So again, that yarn is no longer available, and it was gifted to me. So thank you, Kris, so much, so much. But I will leave a link to the pattern down below, because I would like to try more of her patterns as well. That Lily Kate English, she's a UK knitwear designer, and I really love a lot of the stuff that she does. There's a couple of other her sweaters that I'm eyeing up, you know, in my spare time. All right, now for my next finished item, and this is gonna parlay into plans, I made this amazing hat. So this is what I did over the weekend, and this is the one I became hyper focused on because it's this tartan plaid kind of effect, and I just got so focused on the color work. So this, you know, I did the color work on that soundtrack sweater, and then I'm like, okay, I can do this. And actually one of my viewers was the one that suggested this hat because I had bought the yarn with the thought that I wanted to do a hat and mittens and possibly a scarf or a cowl with this Malabrigo Rios yarn, and I bought it in 3 colors. This is cereza. Is that how you say that? I think it's cherry in Spanish. Cereza? I'll link down below. Teal feather, and then this one is, oh, what's this one called? Autumn gold, maybe? I'll link the colors down below. Oh, this Malabrigo yarn is wonderful to work with and just beautiful color. Actually, no, I didn't. Yeah, that's the teal feather. Anyway, I bought those 3 colors, and I bought 2 skeins of each. Sorry, crinkle the bag. Because I wanted to use them all together. And I've got the coat. If you're watching Vlogmas, you'll know that I did a red coat recently, which you'll be seeing that on me probably in Vlogmas. I'll probably just pop it on because I need to get pictures and stuff of that at some point this week. So some point this week, if you haven't already, you will see my new coat. But it is kind of this red color, and I wanted a hat and scarf and mittens to go with that. And so this is my hat. And I bought a pom-pom maker a while ago because my nephew wanted a pom-pom put on the top of a football, as a Patriots hat actually, that he had gotten for Christmas, and wanted a pom-pom put on top of it. And so I bought a pom-pom maker because I will do anything for my nephews and niece when they ask. And they're so fun to make. I didn't do a great job of trimming up my pom-pom though. There's some scraggly bits that kind of poke out. Need to go back with my trim it up a little. But I love it so much. I've been wearing it on our walks. It's just such a fun hat. And the little knitted baubles were an option that you could put on if you wanted to. I'm so glad I did. Because they were so much fun to knit, number one. But yeah, I think that just really makes for a really cute hat. And I love these colors. These are all my colors, so I think it looks really good on as well, especially when it's something right by your face. So making this into a cowl. I'm doing the mittens. Well, we'll talk about my plans now. Okay, so this is the hat. Now, for the plans portion of this, I have probably about 1/3 of a skein of the red still left, and about half of the skein of the gold, and a lot of the skein of the teal still left of because I said I bought 2 of each of those colors. And so I am going to be knitting, well, they're on my needles, the snow day mittens that go with, okay, so I forgot to say, the hat is the tartan Toque and Tube by Tracie Millar. And, excuse me, she has a pattern called Snow Day Mitts, I believe, that, I think that's the name of it, I'll pop a picture here, that is the same tartan pattern that I am making for the mittens. So I'll be using that same yarn that I made the hat and using to make the mittens. And then if I have enough, I would like to do, I think, the cowl that goes along with the toque as well. So those are next on my to-do list. I want to make the mittens, and again, I've got the ribbing done on one mitten, and I've just started the body of the mitten. I think they'll knit up pretty quick though, because it's just, you know, basically a small hat with a little hat that comes off of it. And I've knit mittens before, so I think that those will come together pretty quickly. You know, a few nights of television and those will be done. Yeah, especially if, you know, we're coming into Christmas, and so the Christmas movies, you know, I like to sit and knit when we're watching TV. So I think they'll come together pretty quickly. And then obviously the cowl is just a tube, even with the color work. So I think that those should come together pretty quickly. But those are next on my to-do list, to finish the mittens and then the cowl, so that I can wear them all with my new red coat, which you guys will be seeing soon. And then after that, it's a toss-up. I think I'll show you what I've got in progress first. So I have been working on the balloon sweater by Petite Knits, which is a Danish knitwear designer, and I love it. And I've been working on it for a while. In fact, I put it aside to work on my soundtrack sweater, and then it just, see, this is what happened. So now it's just been sitting on waste yarn because I needed the needles, because I've got interchangeable circular needles for my soundtrack sweater. So now it's just sitting on cables, actually, waiting to be picked back up again. But I really want to make this sweater, and I have this yarn. This is from Knit Picks, which, I mean, it's good. I mean, it's nice yarn. It's not as nice as some of the other stuff I've gotten from my local shop, but it's good. But her patterns, every pattern that I've looked at of hers, you either knit with fingering weight wool knit together with a lace weight wool, like a mohair. So this is Knit Picks Aloft lace weight. So it is 72% Super Kid mohair and 28% silk. And then, oh boy, I think this is a fingering weight, also Knit Picks, and I can't remember, I don't have the tag, but I think it's just a merino. I don't think there's any silk in this one. But when they're knit together, so even though you're making a sweater with fingering weight and lace weight knit together, she uses rather large needles. So I think I was knitting those on a US size 6 or 7. So it does knit up loose, but because of the mohair, it kind of fluffs up, so it makes for a really light and airy sweater. It's knitting up beautifully so far. So it's also knit from the top down, and I am at the divide for the front and the back now, and now it's sitting on needles. I'm working on because I'm at the divide for the armhole, basically, and then they'll get joined again together to knit the rest of the body. But it's knitting up, like the fabric that's being knit up is really, really gorgeous. So you have that option, or you can also do her patterns with DK weight, the double knit weight wool as well. But it's just really cool when you do the double, because you get that lace weight mohair. It just gives a fuzz. It's just really pretty, and just makes her a really, really lightweight, fluffy sweater. So that is the one that is currently on my needles. So we'll see if that gets moves up the list next, or I have also, so I was introduced to Petite Knits because a lot of people in the sewing community, because a lot of people also knit that are in the sewing community, had knit up the no frills sweater by Petite Knits, and just a very simple no frills sweater. Just a really simple stockinette stitch. Again, it uses a fingering weight wool with a mohair lace weight wool that you knit as one. You knit them together as one. And someone asked if when I'm putting those into a ball, or I wind mine on a cone. I mean, you've seen, I have a ball winder that winds them like this. Asked if I wind them together or separately, and I wind them separately, and then I just pull from 2 separate balls and knit them together. But no, where was I going with that? Anyway, no frill sweater, stockinette stitch. You use also the 2 that goes together. Anyway, So my friend Jenny, not that long ago so that was a sweater that's been on the back burner for quite a while. Like I've really wanted the pattern and I've really been looking at it and wanted to do some really special wool. I thought that sweater would really showcase a special, beautiful wool because there is nothing going on. You don't have to worry about getting anything lost in the details. It's just a stockinette, easy sweater. I think it's one you would wear a ton. It's kind of cropped-ish, you know, like high hip and nice and loose. So anyway, I was at my local yarn shop, and if you're in the Indianapolis area, in Zionsville, Indiana, there is a yarn shop called the Village Yarn Company, and I absolutely, it's the closest yarn shop to me, I would say. I mean, we have a few others that are in the area, but I just love going in there. It's just always so warm and happy, and the gal in there is very informative, and I love downtown Zionsville. It's just a really cute little downtown. There's a ton of cute shops. Anyway, my friend Jenny called and wanted me to go down because she's working on a new sweater and needed some yarn. And so I went with her, of course, because, you know, can't let a friend shop for yarn by herself. And she was having a trunk sale from by the yarn company called Bridiculous hand-dyed yarn. And I know if any of you knit, and really just even seamstresses too, anyone, you know, we get sucked in by the textiles, right? Like it takes nothing to get sucked in by the textiles, whether that's just beautiful colors. That's why prints sell so well, because you see the beautiful prints and the beautiful colors and you just become a sucker to it because it's so beautiful when you see them in the store. That's exactly how I feel about hand-dyed yarn. You see those in the skein, and even just because I feel like knitted up hand-dyed yarn looks so much different than what it looks like in the skein, just because, you know, you're seeing on the skein just the colors that are on the outside that you can actually see sometimes, you know, because the variations will change on the inside, so you can get some beautiful things, and it's like a guessing game of, you know, what's it gonna look like when it's all sewn up or all knitted up. Anyway, she was having a trunk show, and so while Jenny was looking for an actual project, I was like, oh my gosh, she's got fingering weight wool and has matching colors in the lace mohair, which would be perfect for that no-frills sweater. I think now is the time. Now, this was not cheap yarn. This was very much not cheap yarn. So the fingering weight is a 4-ply 70-25 super wash merino nylon, which is typical for fingering weight wool. A lot of people use them for socks. So there's the nylon, which also helps with durability. You ready for this? Okay, wait, hold on. This is called Plentiful Bounty is the color. I will link it down below because this company does have a website. Isn't it gorgeous? Look at the colors in there. So it's got these beautiful purples. These are all my colors. Beautiful purples, and they're like the dark, warm purples. And then there's oranges and yellows. Now the yellows do get a little bit brighter than what is really in my color palette. And I feel like there's, it kind of, where it goes into like purples and there's a little bit of blue in there, it kind of goes green. I mean, they're just all my colors. Because yeah, there's definitely some blue that's in there. Like a denim color, and then it gets lighter, like in through, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. And you look at the different skeins and they're all just different enough. So I went with, so she had colors in like this burnt orange in the lace weight, which is, let's see, the laced weight is 72-28 kid mohair and silk. And it's lace weight 1-ply mohair lace. So she had it in kind of this orange color, like a burnt orange, and also the yellow. But we were talking about when I would wear this. And again, you have to like mix them together because you're going to be knitting them together. So you lose a lot of the color of the mohair when it's getting knit with this. Like it really just gives it almost like a sheen a little bit, if that makes sense at all. Because I follow this Petite Knits on Instagram, and she'll often have, you know, like pictures of her knitting up, you know, like here's the 2 skeins I'm using and here's how they're knitting up. And they always look so much different knit up. I'm always, you know, you'll see like, oh my gosh, that's a bright color of, you know, this lace weight. Like, I wonder how that's gonna look. But then it's just like very subtle in the whole fabric when everything gets knit out. So I was going back and forth between the orange and between this yellow. And I decided I'm gonna be, by the time this gets knit up, it's gonna be springtime, I'm gonna be wearing probably this sweater with like white jeans. And so I thought the orange may take it a little darker, where this yellow will take it a little lighter. Now, this yellow is not one of my colors. This is more of a springtime yellow. It's a little brighter. For me, most of the yellows that I can wear are like mustards and kind of a dirtier, browner kind of yellows, golds, I guess you could say. But I think this is gonna work really well. So this color is honey. And I think when these get paired together, because there's a little bit of this, you know, in there, but I think when that gets paired together, it's just gonna create a beautiful fabric. So I have 3 skeins of each, which should be enough for the sweater. I did all of the math with all the yardage I needed. So fingers crossed. I mean, I can get more if I needed to from the website of this ridiculous website, but yeah, hopefully I have enough. It was a rather large investment. It's the most I've ever spent on yarn for a sweater, but I'm feeling good about it because again, it's a very simple sweater like this, and there's nothing really hard and complicated. I keep thinking I want to do something with like lace or cables and how fun that would be, but I started to do a cable sweater and then it dawned on me I don't wear cable sweaters because it's too much texture across my chest. So I mean, it'd be something I could make for like a loved one, like a family member, especially like one of my boys, my son or my husband, might get a cabled sweater for me at some point because yeah, I just for the experience of knitting a cabled sweater. So anyway, we'll see. But there you have it. Those are my plans. I've been babbling on for quite a while now. My knitting makes that I wanted to show you guys, and then also my plans going forward for the rest of the winter. So at some point I'll show you everything as it gets knit up, but don't hold your breath. Again, knitting gets put aside quite often as other things come up. It's not nearly as constant as sewing. So this will not be turning into a knitting channel, but I did want to share those projects with you guys because you all have been following along with me on my back and forth with, especially in Vlogmas right now. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. I hope you have enjoyed this one. I will be back on, well, Vlogmas. I've got a video going up every day from now until Christmas Eve. But on Sunday, we start the sew along for the Lisette coat. I can never remember the number. The Butterick Lisette coat. I'll pop a picture here. But that will all start. We'll talk about our supplies and fitting the muslin. I'm making this coat for my sister. So my sister makes a little cameo in the video on Sunday. All right, guys, I hope you have a great weekend. Get some sewing or knitting in this weekend, and I will see you all again soon. Bye.